Did you guys know that Les Wexner claims to be ruled by a Dibbuk, which is it's like a disembodied soul who can't move on. It's always malevolent. It's always bad. He speaks of this quite openly, and I was reading Whitney Webb has a new book coming out. It's called One Nation Under Blackmail, and it examines the obscure media profile of Leslie Wexner. He was rebranding himself. 1985 was the year that Leslie Wexner became a billionaire. He was trying to have a personal PR campaign, and so he had the New York Times, New York Magazine do exposés on him. The Bachelor Billionaire on Pins and Needles with Leslie Wexner. That was the headline from the New York Magazine, which is interesting because pins and needles because of the demon. On the morning Leslie Wexner became a billionaire, he woke up worried. But this was not unusual. He always woke up worried because of his Dibbuk, which pokes and prods and gives him the itchiness of the soul that he calls splitkes, pins in Yiddish. Sometimes he runs away from it on the roads of Columbus, or drives away from it in one of his Porsches, or flies from it in one of his planes, but then it's back with his first coffee, his first meeting, nudging him. His Dibbuk, his demon. Wexner could have easily framed this entity as something good, like a Maggot or an Ibur, like righteous ancestors that guide his path. But no, he chose the Dibbuk, which is a demon, as he has a demon. I think that a lot of people who are religious or have an organized religion, they don't want to take responsibility for their evil. Of course they're going to say that they have a demon. They're possessed by a demon. It drives me to do these things. It's like blaming everything on dope for the rest of your life because you used to get high or whatever, you used to drink. It just doesn't work. That's how he describes himself. Les Wexner picks up his heavy black case and flies off in his Challenger with his Dibbuk sitting next to him, taunting him and poking him with impatience. That little demon he really loves. The Dibbuk turns his face. What does he look like? Me, says Leslie Wexner. He looks like me. But for decades, Wexner has had a massive impact on Jewish communities in the U.S. and beyond through his philanthropy. And some of those philanthropic efforts, like the Wexner Foundation, saw Wexner mold generations of Jewish leaders through Wexner Foundation programs, while others, such as the Mega Group, see the organized crime-linked Wexner, joined by several other like-minded billionaires, many of which also boast considerable organized crime connections, in an effort to shape the relations of the American Jewish community, as well as the U.S. government, with the State of Israel. And she asked a really important question. For a man of such influence in the Jewish community, why has there been essentially no questions raised as to Wexner's role in directing the affairs of the ethno-religious community, given that he was openly claimed to be guided by a Dibbuk? This is a particularly odd when one considers that Wexner has come under increased scrutiny in recent years after his protege and closest associate for decades, Jeffrey Epstein, was outed as both a pedophile and stereosexual. But did Wexner's Dibbuk draw him to Epstein and prompt him to financially support his horrific crimes against minors? Well, did it? Is he just a piece of shit and he's using that as an excuse? As a nice little thing to put in there. You don't want to tell the New York Magazine that you're just a fucking evil creep that likes underage boys. There is some chatter that Les Wexner was Jeffrey Epstein's boyfriend. That's how Jeffrey Epstein got so much money from Wexner. He did him. I can believe that. A man as superficial and transactional as Epstein. He'd give some favors for $1 billion? Wouldn't do some for $1 billion? I think the money would ease any bad memories that would come from that experience. But it's easier with guys that way. So there was a bunch of replies underneath to her about the book by a bunch of different authors. Matthew Blum said, Wexner's a psychopath, or meshuga, crazy, as they say in Yiddish. A different author says, Les is clearly with the super powerful homosexual mafia. Victoria's Secret is highly profitable. The homosexual mafia owns it, not Jewish mafia. Why, you say? Because homosexual mafia occupies the tippity top of the power pyramid. As a New Yorker, I watched these two mafias square off against one another. The homosexual mafia won. Certain compromises were reached afterwards. Dominant Jews were eliminated. Submissive Jews were welcomed into the fold. Wexner sure looks like one of the submissive Jews. The pics submitted here show a boyish innocence, no menacing dominance. wandering Jews have, for centuries learned to cope with their host country's rules. No different today.